Okay. So I hope everybody got the agenda and the attachments I sent out. Let's start
Yes.
with that. Here, open it up my end here. Okay, so call to order.
You're buffering, Jay.
I guess we could start with a review of the act. I'm not coming through well.
No, it keeps giving it. You're fine right now, but it was coming through as your internet was buffering.
Oh, okay.
But you're good now.
Okay. Try to get it back to me. There it is. There it is. So we can start with the review of the minutes of the last meeting. Starting with the action items.
I have them here. If you want me to go over them, Jay, or do you have
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. Why don't you do that, Melanie? I
Okay.
didn't send them out with the
No problem.
agenda.
I always print off the number 1 is done. That Harbor Master Donch will be meeting with Michael Payton, Connecticut Deep on Water in September to review the permits for the 4-channel buoys located in the north area of the harbor. That's been completed, and comments are in the Harbor Master's report, which Eric will discuss it during his session. Action item number 2 was also completed. The ones that we've got a lot of them that are done. So I'm just going to quickly summarize. I'm not going to read through all the verbiage. It was regarding the SNS electric bill and completion electrical at the boat dock, and that was completed. And Jesse had sent an email out. I don't see Sherm on here, but I remember he said that he was going to pay. So that's showing done. The next one, action 3, is administrator access for Jay and Sherm, and that's been completed. Today, Eric and I discussed, and Sherm has a role within online mooring that's listed as financial, and he can pull report. Fine. Action item number 4 is also done. It's the new fuel gauge for the Harbor Master boat, and Eric also will in his Harbor Master report showing done. Action item number 5, Chairman Spalding will contact Deputy Harbor Master Estabrooks to ensure he'll attend the October meeting. And since Charles is here, yay! So that's done. And action item number 6, Sherm also sent out to all commissioners the pass letter related to the action item number 7 is for all commissioners to make sure, reminder to send their year-end surveys to Eric. And he'll discuss that in his Harbor Master report. So I'm showing that's done because that's kind of a reminder. Eric, during the Harbor Master report, if you're missing any, just let me know and I'll put it in the minutes for for this meeting. Secretary Degler will obtain all paperwork to be entered into the online mooring system from Harbor Master Donch. Eric and I worked on that hours, and are in good shape with this, and he'll discuss that. Chairman Spalding will discuss the deep recommendations with Harbor Master Donch and then send the latest revision to the town for review. Jay, status on that?
I have not discussed those with Eric.
Okay, so we'll show that.
I guess we don't have Ed. We don't have Ed here. We didn't. I don't. We'll cover it over. We'll talk about it more when we get to the ordinance review.
Okay. And lastly, Commissioner McKinnon will inspect all current transient anchorage buoys. He sent an email. There's a section in the Harbor Master report about this item. I believe. Yes, so we can discuss that then during the Harbor Master report, Bruce, okay? And he also sent an email to everyone, I believe it was everyone, that gave an update on that. So we're all good with action items, Jay.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I propose that we accept the meeting minutes as read.
I second.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on from the minutes of the last meeting? Okay, there's no discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next we're on to correspondence.
No public comment, right? Jay, you're buffering again. Okay, you're back.
Wasn't saying anything. But okay. Okay, next is correspondence. The main correspondence we got this month was the Connecticut Department of Agriculture correspondence regarding the McKay Oyster Farm. You should have all got a copy of this in the agenda, attached to the agenda.
Jay,
So this is
the copy that came through with the agenda with me is totally unreadable. I don't know if other people's attachments in the agenda as posted on the website for the town is readable or not. But I had sent you an entire PDF file of the entire application. It's the only way it was circulated is by being attached to the agenda as published in the town, or did you circulate that to all the commissioners?
The file that I sent to the town, I sent to all the commissioners. So on, let me go get the date I sent that to you guys. That was on October 15th.
Okay, well, I don't know if anybody else has looked at the
5:38.
It's on the agenda, but mine is total garbage, totally unreadable.
The one from the town. Well, that's unfortunate.
Anybody else look at theirs?
All of you received this file from me on October 15th at 5. I sent it October 15th at 5:38 p.m. I sent out two agendas. I sent out one, and then I sent out a second one that had this correspondence attached to it.
Mine's legible.
I got it, Jay. Mine is legible.
Okay,
Okay.
At least if I hope I'm talking about the right one, but yeah, Department of Agriculture. Yeah, it's legible.
well, you're talking about the one that Jay sent out separately as opposed to the one that's attached to the minutes that are posted on the website. Is that correct?
Actually, no, I think mine is the one that's attached to the minutes or to the agenda, right?
Mine's the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, well, I wonder why it is so illegible.
Well, if you, I don't know what happened with the town. If you downloaded it from the town website, it might be illegible, depending on what the town did. The one I sent to them was legible, and then I copied all of you on that.
All right, well,
I think we can be clear, it was a scanned document. So
Right, just scanned it, or I don't know if you scanned it or you photographed it or what.
well, actually, the way I did it was I scanned each page into a Word document, and then I turned the Word document into a PDF document, and that's what I sent to you. And that's
Okay.
very legible.
That was very legible when I sent it out to everybody and to the town. I don't know what the town did to it to make it illegible.
Okay.
They may have printed it and then scanned it. And what they do generally, I think, is they print it, they put a stamp on it, and then scan it.
Oh. Well, you can't scan things too many times and still have it be legible.
true.
All right.
And this is for
Move
Will
on.
Mackay.
Yes.
Will is now my neighbor, so I will abstain from any comments or voting on anything related to them.
Well, I think what we're supposed to do is look at the application and determine, does it interfere with any of the things that are stated in our harbor management plan? And I read through it and I don't see where it really interferes with anything within our plan.
Right. So this is the oyster farm that's tucked up against a little island in Waukegan Cove.
Correct.
So it's really out of the way. I mean, you can see it from the channel, but it's set back from the channel quite a long ways. And I don't think it causes any problem whatsoever.
The only
Any
interference,
other waterway uses there.
the only interference I saw that Will, the applicant stated, had to do with people on kayaks and stand-up paddle boards going through that area, and they might have to, paddle around those buoys. But there's really not too much traffic of motorized vessels in that area. In fact, there probably should be none. So it really shouldn't be a problem.
Right. It's tucked in amongst the rocks there.
Yep.
Are the people on Alleviate Island on board with it? The people who own property on Alleviate Island, it's right off their south shore.
Well, that would be a different, it would be, we wouldn't be a venue for them to complain about it. I don't believe it.
It's public access waterway.
Yeah.
I mean, it does beg the question. I think he's probably going to be accessing it by boat versus land. But maybe he's worked out a deal where he can, let's say walk out at low water and maintain things. I mean, it's so close to the island. Maybe that's part of his, part of what he wants to do or how he wants to do it.
Right. So there were,
Jay, didn't this come up once before where he wanted to put a buoy out in Waukegan Cove so that he could have his boat there, so that he could service his oyster farm? Didn't that come up a couple of years ago? And we agreed that that was a place where he could do that because it really didn't interfere with anything.
I think that's right. I remember it.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Melanie, I had to switch over to my phone because something went dead on my computer. I couldn't hear anybody.
Have you heard anything that we talked about just recently, Eric, with regards to the oyster farm off of the south end of Alleviate Island and north of the channel?
I caught it from about the point where you were talking about vessel traffic, mainly kayaks and paddle boards. It's definitely out of the area of any power boats. To answer the questions about accessing it by walking in off of Alleviate Island, that's not something that he does. He brings his boat over there to access the farm.
So I don't see any reason why we would not accept his application or endorse it, I guess is the correct word.
Well, all I intend to do is answer the Connecticut Department's of Agriculture's questions here.
Mhm.
Basically, all no's, does not, there's interference. There's no other structures, moorings, or obstructions, and any water-dependent uses. I think the answer to all their questions is no.
No.
And I don't think we really have any more to comment on it.
I
Okay.
guess it's not our issue, but is there a Shellfish Commission question that they deal with here?
Oh, they have, I'm sure they have permits from the Shellfish Commission, and they've been all over this, I'm sure, for years.
This application was sent to Eric, to the Stonington Harbor Management Commission, and also to the Shellfish Commission. I mentioned that to Jay, that after I made the copy, if it should be sent out to the Shellfish Commission. As I recall, Jay's answer was, they're on the distribution already, they should already have their own copy. However, the only copy that I'm aware of that we got was one that was addressed to Eric at the town hall mailbox. So the Harbor Management Commission did not receive a separate copy. So I don't even know if the Shellfish Commission received their separate copy. I think as a courtesy, we should send the PDF copy that I sent to Jay off to the Shellfish Commission, just so they're aware in case they did not get the package as even though they're on the distribution. Kurt.
I mean, this farm, it's there. I mean, this must be some kind of a renewal or something he's doing. Because
That was my question.
It's been there for a while.
Is this just a renewal? Because he already has that shellfish farm there.
Yeah. I remember we talked about it a couple years ago. When they first permitted it.
In the same location?
Yeah. Yeah, he does it there. Then he moves them outside the harbor into the sound to cleaner water to finish them.
Well, this is a application from the Department of Connecticut Agriculture. The other applications, were they from the same government entity?
Trying to remember, I think some of them might have been copied from the Army Corps of Engineers. There's a couple different, there's a bunch of different agencies that get involved in this.
I think this is a new agency that we've had to deal with. I don't recall seeing something from the Department of Agriculture before. I got a notice that when I opened up the mail, it struck me as unusual.
Right. So I'll prepare our response to this, regarding the answers no to the 4 questions, and indicate that we don't have a problem to the Department of Agriculture. Okay, so that's my action item.
Fine. Sounds good.
Okay. That brings us to our treasurer's report, which we're lacking the treasurer, but we do have his report. I don't know what happened. What happened to Sherm? He emailed me earlier today and said he could not make it.
Quick comment about the last topic.
Sure. Go ahead, Charles.
I just checked the Shellfish Commission's webpage, and that application was on their agenda for their previous meeting. So they're it looks like they're aware of it because it was on their agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
So if you look in the agenda document I sent out, has the financial report. It's updated with
The reserve sections he added, they're on there.
the public access reserve and the emergency reserve. Yep,
Yes.
which beats our designated funds down to 5,000 probable for the year.
And he said in his email there were no changes.
Yeah, I just opened up his email. It says nothing happened in September. The electrician's bill and Joe's reimbursement will show in October, as will a few mooring fees.
Right. All right. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Motion to accept?
Second?
Second?
Any discussion of the treasurer's report? All right, if there's no discussion, can call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on to the harbor master's report.
All right, just trying to figure out a way to set up my phone. There we go. All right, so for Harbor Master's report, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm not having a problem.
Okay. All right, for the Harbor Master report, nothing new in mooring assignments, permits, anything this past month. No moorings given up in September. That might change as we get down to the last few people that have yet to pay for 2020 and we get their answers. But so $1,437.20 was deposited. That was a combination of mooring fees and monies received from online mooring. That's why, I mean, usually in this thing we see pretty round numbers, at least to the $5 or $10, and generally no change. But I believe that's something that Sherm is still working through with them on which way the monies go back and forth and whether it's deducted from the total or separate checks go back and forth. But I'm leaving that to the financial guy. So for the report itself, I'll kind of summarize the first two paragraphs there. I met with Mike Payton from DEEP. He's our navigational permit point of contact. He's the guy that approves all the permits. And we took a ride around, looked at our stuff, looked at a couple other things he needed to look at. The buoy, what I had put out last month as we should look at putting a piling in off of Pawcatuck Point at that rock groin that kind of sticks right out to the edge of the channel. We went and looked at that, and Mike, that was really kind of a no-brainer for him. As soon as we were at mid-tide, we were coming up on it. He's like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And then I put him right on top of one of the rocks. And he looked back and forth and said, yeah, definitely. But his preference, and he thought it'd be better for us if we went with a buoy instead of any piling. He was concerned about just the, the rock bottom and everything in that area, whether we'd actually be able to get a piling driven in there. It is right on the edge of the channel, so there's a decent amount of water. He mentioned that day, Bruce, I thought he said a class 5 buoy, but I'm waiting for the actual
CFR. Yeah, that's what if you see my email from today, I proposed that for the Anchorage area. That's the bigger one.
Yeah, we may want to look at whatever I don't know if we want to put a foam buoy in that location, and I don't know what their next step up is as far as buoys go. It's going to have to be a relatively short, heavy chain so that this thing doesn't wander back and forth too far. So the mechanics of it is something that we're going to have to work through, and I suspect that we're going to have to go with probably an extra heavy anchor for it, Probably something in a, a heavy dorm or inverted pyramid style anchor so that it stays on location with all the boat traffic that runs through there, knocking it around, and, a heavy west wind would provide a lot of fetch into that area. So we're gonna have to do a little research, and I'm still waiting. I had expected Mike to send me the permit by now, but he said that he's pretty busy on the road and working from home, so he would get it to us as soon as he could. So that's still up in the air as far as
Can I make some
what.
comments on this?
Yeah.
First off, we're forced to go with the buoy, which I think is a bad idea. Perhaps this would be an opportunity to use one of these anchors that screws into the bottom. I can't think what they're called right now, but we are Helix. We do have that as one of the available options for us for a mooring anchor. So maybe this would be a good location to put that, where it would be possibly easier to install and more firm. However, it still seems to me a piling is a better approach. The thing about a buoy is that in general, most people think there's navigable waters kind of on either side of a buoy. It may not be.
You're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Well, in this case, it'd be a rude awakening, but most people kind of figure that, yeah, they can go on either side of a buoy within, a boat width or something of that nature, not have a problem. Well, this thing having a mooring, a buoy with some type of a watch circle, I think it has the potential of creating a problem that we really don't want to have. So unless we absolutely cannot put in a piling, I would suggest we put in a piling. Why not?
I agree. I think the piling, for us, the piling makes so much more sense when you consider that we don't have a ready access to surfacing. Who's going to surface it for us? Who's going to go out and check it and service it and do the position it when we need to, when somebody hits it and drags it around. So that's definitely an issue. And then the watch circle. I mean, it's so tight there. I'd be a lot happier with the piling.
The other thing about the game marker piling is that most people are aware that they really need to honor that, particularly if they run up and down the intercoastal waterway, like through North Carolina, places like that.
All right, so 90% of your boaters that are going to run around here are not running up and down the intercoastal to know that they can't mess with the piling that way. But let's see how the permit is actually written when we get it, to see if he specified buoy or left it open, or if that's something that we have to talk to him about, changing the wording.
I mean, his reluctance on the piling was because of the bottom type. He didn't think we'd be able to get it in. I mean, that's kind of our problem. Not his problem.
That and the fact that they're pretty unforgiving if somebody wants to run into it.
Well, so is the rock.
Well, the rock is too, yeah.
Theoretically, the piling would be at the end of the rocks, so there shouldn't be a problem putting the piling in. But the piling's not at the end of the rocks, and it's not in the right location.
Yeah, another.
What's the actual mark? Is it a demarcation of obstruction, or is it rock, or what's it going to be?
It's actually going to be a green number 23.
Or something like that.
It's going to be 1923. It's going to be green number 21.
Wow.
Right. So the Coast Guard suggested the piling, right, Eric?
No, the Coast Guard suggested a private aid so that we could get something in sooner rather than later.
Okay. Oh, who came up with the piling suggestion? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So perhaps
you got the estimate, and who'd you talk to put the piling in?
That was just a quick phone call to Seaport Marine.
They're familiar with that area. Didn't think it would be an issue getting it in there.
They work right out of the Pawcatuck River.
So they didn't say, "Oh, we can't put one in there."
Yeah,
So-
as a matter of fact, they were the ones that threw back, hey, you could either go wood or steel, your choice, price-wise, price point. They said go with steel and it would be there well past any of the time that all of us were gone. Or pricier, but
Perhaps we're approaching this the wrong way. Maybe it shouldn't be an aid to navigation marker at all. Maybe it should be something that says danger rock.
Obstruction.
People, triangular danger marker, which is would have a triangle sign on both sides of the tiling, and not try to turn it into an aid to navigation, just a warning that danger rock. And
you want to know, you want to see how many people go on the wrong side of the danger rock buoy that we currently have in the Sandy Point channel?
Right. That was going to be a question.
That's going to be the problem, is that at high tide,
They don't monitor it.
most of that rock groin does not show.
Yep, good point.
And if somebody's zipping through there at high tide and sees something that says rock, they're not going to know which side of it to go on, which is why we were trying to add it as a channel marker, which also feeds back to my conversations with Mike Payton a couple of years ago when we tried to make that a slow no wake area. And he shot it down saying, no, there's other than convenience, there's no reason to make this a slow no wake area. The same boaters that will slow down for a slow no wake sign are the boaters that already realize that this is a tight area. And at that time, he said, probably what needs to happen here is another green buoy added to show just how tight this area is, so that people will see that it's very tight and very congested, and perhaps slow down to preserve their own boats.
Okay, all that makes sense to me, so I appreciate the clarity. Thank you.
So as an aid to navigation, is that not the Coast Guard's responsibility?
You can have private aids to navigation.
Yeah, so if you go up the Pawcatuck River, I think those are private aids to navigation up the Pawcatuck River.
All those piling setups up in the upper Pawcatuck are private aids. Yes. And in talking with the Coast Guard ATON, aids to navigation, the guy that runs the boat, asking him about it because I had called him about another mysterious green can that showed up next to our rock buoy. And in that conversation is where when I said, hey, what would it take to get a buoy added? And he said, well, you guys can start the paperwork, but you're probably looking at a good 3 to 5 years before anything would happen. If you really want to make something happen in the short term, you should go after a private aid to nav. And what he told me happens with the private aid to nav is that once it goes in, it's registered with the state. It's also approved by, not NOAA.
It's the Coast Guard, the first district. I think.
Coast Guard, and so the Coast Guard also buys off on it, and they keep an eye on them. So when they're checking all of their buoys, they're also checking the private aids. And if they see that they're degraded, they call the state. The state looks it up and says, okay, that belongs to town of Stonington. State calls town of Stonington and says, hey, your buoy green 21 is in poor condition. You need to fix it. So that's kind of how it gets included in any maintenance type activity.
All right, so let's just try to figure out where we go. They want us to put in a buoy. Possibly other commissions would like to see us put in a piling. It sounds like Eric's going to wait to see what the application actually looks like. And from there, we will make a decision as to whether we either fight them if we really want to have a piling, or if we submit if we're willing to do a buoy. Is that correct? Synopsis of where we stand on this?
Yes, I think
I
that's
can
good.
also put in a call to Mike Payton and see if I can discuss it with him, see if what his pushback would be to going to a piling. I'll just tell him that once it was brought up in a commission meeting, there was a lot of concern about the current and the, trying to keep one on location, and I'll see if Mike can give me any words of wisdom on that. So,
Okay, that's good.
Hey, Eric, it seems to me there's two other considerations that I agree with putting a piling in because it fixes it, and also having it a green mark aided navigation type piling. But also with a buoy, we all know it's a very narrow passageway through there. And a buoy can swing, and if it swings towards the center of the channel, it's going to narrow the channel and make a narrow channel even more narrow. If it swings the other way, because it's got to be darn close to that rock, but it's going to get even closer to the rock if it swings towards the rock, and it creates an even better, possibly a bigger hazard if people are not heating it as well as they should. So again, that's other arguments you might consider when you talk about a floating versus a fixed mark there.
okay, I jotted that down as a note for when I call Mike. That's a good point.
Yes, that's a good point, Joe.
So, I didn't see anything happening in the real short term anyways, probably before we get to the next spring at some point. I mean, it would be nice to get it in now, but by the time we work through everything, it looks like it'll be a few months anyways. So I'll put in the call to Mike.
So I have a question, Eric. So once we have a permit from Mike or from the state, we can proceed with construction. We don't need to or place an employee. We don't have to wait for the Coast Guard. That's sort of.
Yes. Now that you've said the magic word construction, he said if you want to go with a piling, you also have to put in a structures application.
To who?
I'm thinking that goes to Army Corps.
Really? Okay.
I believe
Well,
that's Army Corps of Engineers.
Perhaps we can do both then. Perhaps we'll go ahead and put in a buoy and also put in an application for a piling to the Corps of Engineers so that we can replace the buoy at some point in time with a piling if that proves to be the best approach. I don't know how long it would take for the Corps of Engineers to respond to a piling request, but I think it's important for us to put something out there as soon as we can, even if it turns out not to be the final permanent solution.
Yes and no. I mean, it's been unmarked for how many years? So,
Forever. Yeah.
I don't know. It seems to me that there used to be a buoy right in there years and years ago, but that was back when I was the kid zipping through there with no attention to slow, no wake areas.
I think the buoy is kind of problematic there. It might be why they took it out.
That could be. All right, but I'll follow up with Mike Payton and work further on that. Any more discussion on that particular one?
Nope.
Okay, so then the next permit was for the red and green buoys marking the inner channel, as we call it, in Stonington Harbor proper. Those buoys have always been put out by Dotson's and maintained and taken care of. And other than me dragging them around and putting them where I like them, Dotson's has always done everything with those. So in an effort to make everything good with the state, I put in an application figuring that one was going to be a no-brainer. Turns out that was the one that we spent probably 45 minutes to an hour going back and forth and looking at. Mike's statement, and keep in mind that Mike is protecting the interests of the state at this point. So his his way of looking at this was, if you have an established channel, that none of your moorings, none of the swing circle of your moorings can swing within that channel. Because if you're a boater that goes out there at the beginning of the season and on your GPS marks those reds and greens, and you're coming in the fog someday or whatever, and you're running on your GPS and you run up to your waypoint to the first inbound red, and you set a course for the red at the top of the channel, and halfway up the channel, one of the moored boats has swung into the channel, and you collide with it. His opinion is that because the state issued the permit, that you now have some recourse to go after the state for the positioning of those buoys. So, with that in mind, what we did was look at the swing circles on the moorings, and he had his super Wamptodime distance measuring laser gun with him. And we went back and forth and figured that by the time you get the reds and greens so that no swing circle comes to within that area, you end up with a channel that's only about 50 feet wide. And a 50-foot wide channel is pretty useless. So he was not willing to approve buoys to put out a 50-foot wide channel. His suggestion was, well, first he said, and those don't have permits, so they got to come out. I told him that, yeah, I'd have those removed. And sure enough, when the season's over, I'll remind Steve at Dodson's to pull those out. He suggested we run next season with no buoys in there at all and see if it really is necessary to have a set of buoys. The only people that I know use them as a reference is Dodson. When they're directing transients into their mooring field, they'll tell them to come up to the beginning of the channel off of the commercial fishing docks and proceed up another 7, 8 rows and then go 4 or 5 moorings in. That's how they describe getting to their moorings. So on those basis, that application was denied. Now, what he did suggest, he just kind of threw it out there and then left it. He said one option would be a center channel marker at each end. That way there's something saying, hey, there's a channel here. It doesn't define the east and west sides of the channel. It just says that, hey, there's a channel in this general area. And it would keep traffic coming up through the middle there. The nice part about having a channel is that inbound traffic tends to go up and down that area instead of just haphazardly cruising through the mooring field.
So how does a mid-channel marker alleviate the responsibility for the state relative to a port and starboard marker?
Well, a mid-channel marker isn't defining the edges of a channel. So it's not defining that here's a 100-foot wide channel or here's a 50-foot wide channel. It's just saying there's a channel from point A to point B, and this is the middle of it. Nowhere does it say it might be the middle of 50 feet or it might be the middle of 200 feet.
So that buoy location would be a GPS coordinate that incoming traffic would be able to identify?
Correct.
Okay.
Eric, am I clear that the two adjacent mooring lines that border the channel, if we want to call it that, the separation of those two lines is greater than it is for the normal mooring spread on, let's say, the eastern side of the channel? Am I right?
That is correct. And if you look at a navigational chart, it's defined as two independent special anchorage areas with an open between them. So what we didn't know, what we didn't understand when mooring grid was established, or maybe just, I don't know, but when the mooring grid was established, we didn't factor that the mooring circles had to stay out of that channel. Had that been a known at the time, we probably would have pushed them a little bit further apart and overall lost one entire column of moorings.
Is there a bigger question here, which is, as the Harbor Commission and being concerned about the safety of navigation, we know there's a lot of navigation that goes, up to Dodson's for a lot of reasons, for meals, for gas, for fuel. You have the launches coming in and out of there all the time. Isn't it prudent to have a navigable channel that's defined there, not one that just has private markings, or is that not our concern?
It is defined on a navigation chart. I'm looking at a chart right now.
Yeah.
And there it is. You can't see that. If you look at navigation chart of the harbor, it shows a north-south channel that as it gets to the north end, it widens like the top of a funnel. So it encompasses either entrance under the railroad bridges, and about equivalent to where the harbor master's dock is, it opens up to the rest of the channel to the south of that navigable area. So it's shown in the navigation chart.
I see the same thing, Jess. The chart that I'm looking at doesn't show any marks on it at all, which there wouldn't be because they're not government marks.
Right.
Right.
The government marks are further out in the harbor. So my question is, should we have marks, whether they be private or otherwise? Is it the prudent thing to do?
Are we not in a pre-existing non-conforming situation?
If this was planning and zoning, I think that would work.
Yeah.
The marks don't really help you get to Dodson's for dinner or the dog watch for dinner so much. They're more helpful for getting up to the railroad bridges and under the bridges to Don's Dock or to the left of Carlin Cove or up that way.
Yeah. So here's my suggestion. Let's go with Mike's suggestion and not put a set of markers in for the 2021 season. Let's see what happens. Ed Smith mooring is right there. Jay Spalding's mooring is right in that area.
Yep.
Bruce Anderson lives at that end of the harbor. Melanie travels it quite a bit. Let's see. Bruce McKinnon can watch it from his location. So let's make a concerted effort for the 2021 season to watch the traffic flow and see if it continues to run through what previously was a quote-unquote marked channel, or if people start wandering over into just running through the mooring fields. And if they're just running through the mooring fields, that gives us another piece of ammunition for going back for the mooring permits. Another little inside piece of information is that at the end of the 2021 season, Mike Payton will not be the guy issuing permits.
Okay.
Do you know who it will be?
I think that's a good idea. Just not you.
Don't know who it will be, but I have some hopes and dreams. And I'll leave it at that.
You know, I spend a fair amount of time through that area since I keep a boat at Don's Dock. And most of the large boats that leave the Dodson's mooring field do travel west to get to that channel. They do not go through the mooring field. The only boat that goes to the mooring field is Dodson Launch. Everybody else tries to get to the.
Pretty much a true statement. They'll either go up that channel or they'll come in and immediately hug the shoreline, so to speak, to get up to Dotson. So, but you know, let's just watch it for the 2021 season, see how it plays out, and then we'll pursue it after that.
Agreed.
Good idea.
Okay. Agreed.
Right, so next piece in my report is that while we were out cruising through the harbor, Mike said, "Hey, turn around and go back to that buoy." Says that's labeled wrong. So just the way that he was very surprised that Gilman gave us buoys that were laid out the way they are. It should say it's got the orange diamond on it. The word slow should be in the diamond with no
Did you get my
wake below.
Did you get my email today? Because I talked to Gilman about it, and they said the DEEP has changed the idea about that. They changed what they want. So when we bought those, they were probably correct, and Gilman has been changing buoys throughout the state. They're aware of it. So I sent an email about that today.
Yep, and that's how I was going to wrap up this portion. But
Yep.
I already had it in, so I felt I had to talk about it. So Bruce has already got the answer to that one. Slow no wake sign still out on Sandy Point. Going to have to go out and take that down at some point. That's going to be one of those last minute, hey, the weather is nice, and I'll make a few phone calls, see who's available. It's always easier with two people to drop those and just get them out of there. I'll do that sometime in the next month or so. That's pretty much all of that stuff. As far as the boat itself goes, the fuel gauge we did replace.
Eric,
It was, hello?
hi, Eric, it's Mel. Can we go back to the wording on the, can we talk about, please, can we talk about the anchorage?
Yeah, the anchorage buoys,
Wording on buoys there?
they're just going to have an orange circle, and it's going to say anchorage area above and below it. Those.
Right. I wanted to talk about this year and last year. I've mentioned a few times, we've had issues near our boat in the anchorage area where people are anchoring outside of the transient anchorage near the what am I, 9Q,
Yes.
and snowbird catamarans anchored in the large ones in the transient area, and two of them were anchored. One of them right next to our boat dropped their anchor past our mooring, and we didn't, when we came, we had our launch boat on there and we were gone for 3 days. And when we came back, they were there and very close to our boat. And suggestion was,
Melanie, you're breaking up.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can we change the wording to anchorage limit instead of anchorage area? Because people, they're telling.
I don't think so. I think
The state has very limited messages that are allowed to be on buoys. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, they're limited to things like swim area, slow no wake, anchorage area, danger, rock, that they have very defined messages that they're willing to put on the buoys to keep them regulated and keep them all the same.
Okay.
I think they have just a separating area, just.
So I'd like to chime in on this particular issue. A couple of days ago, actually, I've been observing these catamarans that Melanie's talking about. One of them has been frequenting the floating dock that's near Breakwater, and I actually took photographs of this guy going through the harbor, obviously exceeding the slow no-wake zone. He took his dinghy over to his catamaran, whose name escapes me right now, but I sent photographs to Eric. And the question I actually had to Eric is, how can we, what limitations do people in the transient area have, aside from the fact that the guy is violating the slow no wake and he's using some of the launch area, the floating docks at his own personal dock? But how long can somebody stay in the anchorage area before there's some type of violation that we need to be able to enforce? Because these guys basically are livable, as best I can tell.
Yes, they are.
The ordinance says that they have 10 days. So it
Well,
gives
this
them weekend to weekend.
Now,
They've been there more than 10 days.
yeah, obviously more than 10 days. Now, even if they pull up their anchor and move to a different location, that's still within the 10-day period, or they leave and come back the next day, does it start over again? I mean, I see.
All they gotta do is,
These people basically are coming up with a way to have a mooring in the harbor without a permit. That's what it looks like to me.
all they gotta do is go out for a sail for a couple hours and come back and it starts all over again.
Well, okay, so that's unfortunate, because we're being taken advantage of, not only in the anchorage area, but also in the slow no wake. I mean, obviously, I have a photograph of the guy. I've got all the information. We could
Okay, well,
actually,
the photograph that you sent me showed a guy obviously speeding in a inflatable, and all it said was, "Got one," and
Well,
it
yeah,
didn't
that's-
identify it as being associated with any boat in specific in the harbor.
I can do that.
So,
I have sufficient. In fact, I sent out something after that. It was a PowerPoint presentation that shows the boat that it belonged to and the he's speeding through the harbor. And there was 2 pages to that presentation, because one has to do with one of the catamarans, the other had to do with the other catamaran that's in there, in that location. I sent that to you probably maybe less than a week ago.
One of the catamarans is from Newport.
Yeah, the other was Watch Hill.
Oh, okay, didn't get that one. Are there only 2 there? We're going out to our boat tomorrow. We weren't out there this past weekend, so,
There were
did
3.
you notice one of them's still near our mooring?
I don't know where your mooring is, but there were 3 catamarans there about a week ago, all about the same size, in the neighborhood of about almost 50 feet long, 20 feet wide.
Yes.
all right, I'll go take a look at them tomorrow morning.
We'll
be out there too, Eric, if you need us for anything.
Yeah, and check your email, because I did send you the information you're asking about with regards to identifying the tender and what is the boat that is the tender to, and pictures of the boat, the catamarans.
I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, one of those pictures was the one you sent me the first time. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll go take a look at it tomorrow. I'll just find out what their intentions are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw them out of the harbor.
I think I put dates on the information I sent to you, and I think they're about 10 days apart also. First picture was dated, I don't know what it was. I can't get to my computer now because I'm doing this WebEx.
You can open it up in a new window because I'm doing it. you've got a picture of the dinghy going through the harbor dated 10/4, and you've got a picture of Sophia on 10/15,
There you go.
and
11
another
days.
picture of Sophia on 10/4. So I'll go take a look at them tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Eric, if we're not out there, could you please look and see how close they're anchored? As towards Wampasic, way at the one that was, and I believe it's the largest one. I don't remember the name. I just remember it was the largest one. And they're the ones who were anchored out of the field, in front of our mooring.
I'll take a look. See, that's really surprising because one of the anchorage area buoys very close to your mooring.
And we've had this year and last year, we had a sailboat this year and a power boat last year that we spoke to and asked them to move.
I'll take a look at these guys tomorrow.
Just FYI, Eric, I think probably one of these same large catamarans was anchored in, Jesse, I think in your inspection area in row 22 or so, near Legacy 5. Big darn catamaran, right on the edge of that mooring field on the east side of the channel. So they seem not to really much care about what they're doing.
Yes, I do.
There's
actually
a
have a photograph of
Dodson's
them,
rental mooring in that area.
What's that?
Dodson's
have photographs
has
of
a
that.
mooring in that area
Yes,
they
talk
can
about.
rent out.
Yeah, they weren't on a mooring. They were just anchored.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go try and talk to him tomorrow. Anything else?
Yeah, I had a question, Eric. And being the new guy on the block, I don't know how all this always works, but my inspection and my report I sent to you, amongst other things, it seemed like there were as many as I have like 54 mooring.
Joe,
Yeah.
can I finish up going through my report and then we'll get into that stuff?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you asked if there's anything else.
I was asking about that subject.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. So to finish up what I have in the report, I was on the part where the fuel gauge has been replaced. The sender unit turned out to be good. So we got away relatively inexpensive on that. And it seems to be working fine now. The boat's going to be hauled out probably middle of next month. Generally, what I do is wait until we're down to just a couple of boats left in the harbor. Most everything is out. Take a couple of last tours to make sure that everything looks decent, and then haul the boat out. There's no special projects or anything going on this winter, so there really won't be any reason to leave the boat in. And I suspect that we'll store it over at Don's dock and have them shrink wrap it as we've done in the past, unless anybody else has different ideas.
Sounds good to me.
One question that I have on the shrink wrapping, I know that Dodson's and some other boat yards are now going away from shrink wrap. They're going to canvas. And I don't know if any cost benefit analysis or comparison analysis has gone between, purchasing a canvas cover specifically for the harbor master's boat or the expense of shrink wrapping, each year. Part of it's environmental also. The shrink wrap isn't that environmentally friendly and all that stuff. So I don't know, Eric, any thought on that?
You know why Dodson's went away from shrink wrapping, right?
Fire.
You tell me.
Yeah, when they burned up the Galatea and 3 other boats as suspected results of a shrink wrapping accident. And that's when they said, they won't be doing any more shrink wrapping. And they moved over to the canvases. For, you know, something that size of boat, it probably has its returns a lot faster than something for the Harbor Master boat. If it came down to that, I would just as soon look around and find indoor storage for the boat, like we've done in the past.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, so that's the written part of the Harbor Master's report. Jay, do you want me to continue down the list that's in the agenda, or do you want to accept the report first, or what?
Let's continue down the list of the agenda, and then we'll do the whole thing together.
Sounds good.
Updated waiting list. I updated 3 entries that were received over the last couple of months in the waiting list.
So
Those are all set.
let me
I
ask
think
you this: when you say you've updated them, what do you mean by that?
I went in the online mooring and I updated their contact information for Miller, Strunk, and Ahern.
Okay, so
So
you're
I
just
got the
all you're
forms.
doing is
I get the forms in the mail in the harbor management mailbox, and I can send these to you and let you do it. But I think it's just as easy for me to do it myself. So
yep. No, that's no
I
problem.
I went in and corrected their addresses and emails.
I wanted to make sure that when you say you updated, that it wasn't something that was in a waitlist application and you had pushed it into an approved.
No,
waitlist
this is just
entry.
waitlist contact info.
Okay,
That's all.
good. Thanks.
People who moved, these are 3 people who moved, and they sent in their new addresses.
Okay. Because right now, my reason for not wanting a lot of people going in there and changing statuses of things. Melanie will tell you that as she and I were looking at it this morning, there was 4 people who had waitlist applications in who are current mooring holders. And what was happening is, being the first year with online mooring, when people went in to renew their moorings, they couldn't figure out what it was they were trying to accomplish. So they ended up putting in new applications that went into the wait list. And, you know, we don't want those to just be haphazardly approved and moved over to the wait list. So, yeah, so anybody that has administrative rights really shouldn't be doing any of that without cross-checking everything real hard first. So the wait list, right now, dashboard. Right now, we're showing 224 people on the wait list. There is some crosstalk that we have to go figure out. Now that we kind of have a grasp of the moorings themselves, we can start working on, and by we, I mean pretty much me. There's a category in here that going to have to go through person by person and figure out, because we believe that there's some duplications between incomplete applications and waitlist people. So that there's work to be done to make sure that our waitlist doesn't have a bunch of duplicates on it. The mooring list is in really good shape. Melanie gets 99.98% of the credit for the condition of our mooring list right now. I'll take that back. She gets 90% of it. Charles gets 9.98 for his preparation in the files, the way they went over there. We've been told by Online Mooring that our harbor is one of the better organized harbors that they've seen in their system. So kudos to the way the stuff went over there. And Melanie's been chasing down people the last couple of weeks. And we now have 9, 10. We now have only 11 people left that we're chasing. No, 7 and 2, 9 people that we're chasing.
There's 2 others.
Yeah, there's 7 in the renewal incomplete and the 2 in renewal under review. So a total of 9 people in October. That's a fantastic number. We're usually up in the 20-some that we're chasing at this time of the year. So we're in really good shape there. So that's renewal status, new moorings. There's been 3 new moorings installed this season over on the east side, and 1 new mooring over in Wickety-Quack Cove. Those are all in there. Mooring surveys. Let's see if I go down the list. I got something from Sherm. Ed had some files corrupted, so he's working on that. I believe I got Bruce's. Paul, I think I got something from like about a month ago. Joe, I got something from you. Jesse's I've got. So we're in good shape for mooring surveys. It was a really odd year for mooring usage. We did probably end up somewhere around 20% of the moorings being unused due to COVID. We do what we can there. It's a special circumstance that I'm not willing to take away somebody's mooring just because they put their health above going out on their boat for the season. As far as the Harbor Master boat itself, Harbor Master boat status, with the fuel gauge fixed now, boat's in good shape. Like I said, I'll be hauling it out in a little while. And with that, we'll go back to Joe. Please finish your question that you were working on earlier that I interrupted you on.
You're on mute, Joe. Do you want me to unmute you?
Hi, guys. I think we did it at the same time, Melanie. Okay, yeah. I had 2 questions, just being new. So in my survey, I noticed there were somewhere between 4 and 14 possible moorings that seemed to be active, but weren't on the online mooring list. And I indicated them in my summary to you, Eric, so you can follow up. But I guess, Melanie, maybe you or Eric or somebody's reviewing that sort of thing and making sure that online mooring has all the active ones, listed, as I would expect they would be. That was one thing. The second thing was I had as many as possibly 16 moorings that there was nothing there at all, nothing listed on online moorings or anything else that are possible new assignments. I didn't know what the process was, Eric, and I was just curious what the process is for getting boats on those moorings.
So, Joe, we'll follow up on the ones that for some reason don't appear to be showing up in online mooring. That hopefully is something straightforward and simple. But as far as the available open moorings out in your area, and I'm trying to get to one of my other reports here while I'm doing this. Mooring assignments.
Eric, I can tell you from speaking with online mooring last week, I found a number, 2 or 3 that weren't numbers weren't in our system, and they said that's does happen when we did that. The mass downloads for a new hardware. come in for some moorings not to show up. And we list to Jen, and she goes in and puts the mooring and assigns them to our harbor so that we can assign them to a person.
Yeah, and if you guys remember, we kind of pushed this last minute-ish at the beginning of this year because we really wanted to get the renewals out in January. Would they end up going out February 10th or something like that? So we didn't take the extra time to cross-check, and now that we have some downtime over the season, and this is honestly, Joe, part of the reason that you guys do the survey is
Right.
to notice those kind of things, bring it to my attention, bring it to our attention, so that we can look into it and fix it.
Right.
So we'll run with that. We'll take your report and run with that. Now, as far as open moorings, yes, your area probably out of everybody's areas, as I'm looking at this, my own grid graphic here, your area is probably has the highest percentage of open moorings because I don't generally assign smaller boats. You know, I'm not gonna put 20, 22, and 25 footers out in your area in an area that's designed for 35, 36 feet and above.
Right.
So I purposely hold back on those. Now, as we work our way down the wait list and filling up these spots, yeah, we're going to have to start assigning some smaller boats into the quote-unquote large boat area. Everything south of the transient anchorage is kind of designated as large boat. There are some small stuff mixed in there, and what you see when you see the smaller, like right in the middle of your mooring field is a small power boat. And that is because that person is relatively new and they asked that the mooring be set up to accept, you know, both of their boats when we put it together because they weren't sure exactly which boat was going to get out there at the time.
Right.
So, you know, I didn't assign them something up in the northwest corner of the harbor for their 22-foot, or it's bigger than that, but, you know, their 28-foot power boat so that they could put their 40-foot sailboat on it eventually. But, yeah, there's plenty of room out there. And in contrast, Sherm's area up in the northwest corner has one available spot out of 10 rows. Ed's area has 3 available spots out of 10 rows. Bruce's is showing 3 out of 10 rows. Paul's is where it starts to open up a little bit. He's probably got the most new assignments in the last year in his area. And then Bruce Anderson has the area around the transient anchorage, so his is kind of a blend of open like yours. So I think Jesse has 2 open spots. He's got 4 open spots. 2 of them we allowed the yacht club to use this summer. So,
Right.
you know, so it's I filled everything with the appropriate size boats first, and now we'll have to start moving things, you know, filling them in with smaller boats, and we'll fill in around the edges, and I'll leave the first MNOP, probably leave those available for bigger boats and just keep filling in.
Well, curious.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, curious, again, in terms of process, if you have somebody's got, let's call it a 40-foot boat, for example, a bigger boat, a deep keel, right? and he's number 100 on the wait list, for example. And 1 through 99 are all small boats that could fit anywhere in the harbor, but the big boats can only fit, like you said, Eric, in certain specified areas. Do you fill in specifically according to the wait list, or do you allocate by area where it's most efficient for boats to be able to fit? You know what I mean? I just don't
I think to answer it in a different way is that, no, I'm not going to go that deep into the wait list just to find an appropriate sized boat and skip over a bunch of people. You know, how do you like to be the guy on the wait list with a, you know, let's just say a 28-foot boat,
Yeah.
and I skip over you in favor of the guy that has the 48-foot boat? What's your immediate opinion going to be?
Yeah, no, I understand. And that was an extreme example, but that's, like you said, should just as just a comment, just thinking outside the box here a little bit. Should we say, well, this area is for deeper draft boats, and this area, which is most of the harbor, is for less deep draft boats? I don't know. I don't have an answer for this, and I'm not looking to jump positions or anything like that, because I know how sensitive it is to everybody, especially who's been on the waiting list for a hell of a long time. Just asking how it works. That's all.
Yeah, I'd be real cautious and real skeptical about making a statement or a policy that says everything south of the transient anchorage area is for 6 feet and more draft boats.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
You know, it gets
sticky.
start locking yourself in with more and more regulation, and
Right.
We're just trying to keep this thing open and flexible, and you get people bouncing around too. You know, I've already got a couple of calls about, hey, we're probably going to a bigger boat next summer. What can we do? And
Yep.
then we get the opposite. So I'm getting rid of the big boat. You know, my knees have finally given out. I'm going to smarten up and go to a power boat instead of a sailboat.
Right. So you move it around. I had one other question, and if you have a boat that's or mooring assigned to, let's say, a gentleman who's married and he has a boat on it and he passes away, what does the spouse, the surviving spouse, have any rights to that mooring with that boat?
Yes.
Okay.
That's called out in the plan. That's the only passing of a mooring that's approved in our plan is
Right.
to a spouse. There is no passing to siblings, offspring, anything like that.
Okay. Good. All
Yeah,
right.
that's why we got to be real careful. Like Melanie and I today, we were going through and picking out some examples to talk about to each other, and we came across one that we're 99% sure that the mooring holder is deceased. We found an obituary. The obituary said right in it that he was predeceased by his wife. So when it said that, I didn't have any worries about having to go find the wife and ask what she wanted to do.
Right. Okay. Good. All right. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. So Jay, I think that wraps up everything that I had under Harbor Master for the agenda.
Yep, that's thorough. Can I get a motion to accept the Harbor Master's report?
Motion to accept?
Second?
No, second.
Second from Jess. Any more discussion on the Harbor Master's report? I think we had enough. All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the We get into old business for the ordinance status first, and the management plan revision status.
Jay, can I ask, this is Bruce M., can I ask a quick question? Under what do we discuss whether I go ahead and purchase these two anchor area buoys?
I thought we were going to do that under an action item. That's what you said we would be able to cover that under,
Okay, the action items were done.
right? That wasn't one of them?
Well, the action items, when we discussed it, Melanie said, well, Bruce will discuss that later. So I just wonder where we discuss it. I don't see any new business here. I just need to know whether I should go ahead and order those two buoys and get approval from the commission to have all of the lettering on the slow no wake area buoys done. I talked to Gilman today, and they'll come down and they'll pick all those buoys up and redo the lettering. But I need approval to buy two buoys, which is a $3,400 expense. I just didn't want to go ahead and do it without running it by the commission.
What do you think about that cost? Is that exorbitant or is that reasonable, or what? I haven't heard any comments on that.
You know, my thoughts when I first took on this 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it was, and I dealt mainly with Elizabeth Gilman, the president of the company, and we had a really good relationship, and she was giving me nice discounts for this and that. She seems to have given me over to the salesperson, Dwayne Winnett, and he just sort of does that. He just does the list price. He does get him to they don't do any delivery charges. There are certain charges that they take off, but yeah, this was a lot higher than the buoys that we bought. We bought those big slow no wake area buoys, and to my mind, they were substantially less money. They were like half the price of these, and it's the same size. It's the Class 5 buoy. So I was a little surprised at the estimate. One thing I would say.
How long would it take to get the buoys once we place the order?
He had a message there. I think it was. What is it? 3 to 6 weeks, I think he said.
Okay, so we don't need them till next spring anyway.
That's correct.
I would suggest try to negotiate a better price, and we can revisit this in the November meeting, before we make a commitment to spend those funds, to see if we can, work with the folks to get the cost down a little bit. We've been a pretty good customer, but they got tons of good customers anyway.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can talk to Elizabeth again and see if she can help us out in that way. One thing, before I joined the commissions, there were buoys that were bought by from other vendors, and they turned out to be really junk. Even Dodson Boatyard, Bob Snyder had an issue with the Gilman family at one point years ago and stopped buying Gilman moorings or mooring buoys, and now they've gone back to them because they really are the best. I mean, they do things, they really do. It's a class act. So I would not recommend going to look for another company. We've done that and it didn't work out so well. But I'll call Elizabeth, and we'll see if we can get some reduction in the price. I thought it was high for two Class 5 buoys.
I'd like to emphasize that in my industry, ocean engineering, we use Gilman buoys a lot because they are the best. So deviating from them, I think, would not be a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
From another review of the marketplace, I can honestly say that from Defender's perspective, we buy from Gilman.
Yeah.
And I think we're very, very lucky to have them in the proximity that they are. Obviously, there are others out there. There's one group out in California I know that just take forever to get products. So I think we should really count our blessings that we've got Gilman on our doorstep the way we do.
I think so too. And often, most of the time, there's been just a couple of times when they've had to deliver. I mean, I usually throw, if I have 3 or 4 buoys in a winter season that have to be serviced, I throw them in my truck. I have Dodson's put them in my truck. I take them up there and I visit with the guys up there. So it's really nice. It's a half-hour trip for me up and a half-hour back. So I think having them on our side is a really good thing. So I'll ask her about the price that we thought it was higher than what we've paid in the past. I should check with Sherman, see what we paid for the Class 5 buoys that we bought 4 or 5 years ago, and I'll check with Sherm on that.
Well, hopefully we're buying several more this year too. Hopefully.
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's going to be there could be a big buoy bill if we get the 5 slow no wakes over at Sandy Point, and then if we get something off add those up. That's going to be a very large bill. So anyway, they will work with us. So we'll see. I'll give her a call.
Okay.
So we'll hold on that.
So, yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for the November meeting.
Okay. Terrific. Thanks.
All right.
So as far as the re-lettering of the slow no wake buoys, I'll just go ahead and do that. They'll come down and pick them up at Dodson's, and we'll just have that done. That's a small cost if there is any cost.
Okay.
All right. Good. Thanks.
Okay, back to the ordinance. So it's Eric, you weren't at the last meeting. We had feedback from the state on our proposed ordinance for. So first of all, the state wanted the ordinance and the plan split into 2 documents, and the ordinance approved before the plan was fully resolved with the state. So they gave us feedback on the ordinance, things they need to see changes in the ordinance before that would happen. And the main thing was the slow no wake zone at Sandy Point. They did not want the slow no wake zone defined by the slow no wake buoys. It had to be defined by points of land or government navigation buoys, like our harbor slow no wake zone is.
All right, so my feedback on that is, so I printed out your email today, the one where you spoke with Tim Delgado up at DEP, and he was the one that told you that they need it defined by either their buoys or points of land. And your suggestion for going back to red number 4, which is the buoy between Stonington Point and Sandy Point, and red number 10, which is quite a ways down the Sandy Point channel. That's going to make the slow no wake area so large that it's unenforceable, especially on the western side. On the Stonington side, the channel from Stonington Point down to Sandy Point. If you go all the way back to where the red number 4 buoy is, the waters are so wide there, and probably 60 or 70%, well, most of your local boaters don't even bother with the channel once they go around the corner. They go around Sandy Point, they kick it up, and they make a beeline for Watch Hill to go fishing. They don't go down the channel to red number 4 and then take a left to go wherever they want. The expanse there is probably, I'm going to throw it out there and say 800, 1,000 yards, something like that. You need a line of slow no wake buoys across that area to define that it's a slow no wake area. And then it is so far outside of what we're trying to accomplish that it's it's no good. It's just not, it doesn't do what we want, which is why we've had this conversation when we first started talking about slow no wake for that area. And originally somebody said we should start at the red number 4. And in conversation, we decided that it would start halfway between red number 4 and the tip of Sandy Point, because at that point it's narrow, it's easy to police, for lack of a better term, and it's a small enough area to accomplish what it is we're trying to accomplish. The same holds true, although a little bit tighter waters, the same holds true by going all the way down to red number 10. We really don't need a defined slow no wake area past green number 7.
Well, we can stop at green number 7. That's fine. We can do that. It's nice on that side. We have a lot of variety of buoys to choose from to make it as long or short as we want. The problem on the other side is there isn't any other convenient marker to point to terminate the edge of the zone.
Oh,
And
I can tell
Mike,
you that
I think
at
Mike
the
Payton told you that. Yeah.
at the DEP, Mike Payton is not in agreement with Tim Delgado that they have to be defined by a federal aid or a point of land.
That's right. It seemed in my discussion with Tim Delgado that he was authority over what Mike Payton was saying. I don't know.
I'd have to question that at DEP because those are 2 different job titles, and that's not Delgado's area of expertise.
Because I know
Navigation is not Delgado's area of expertise.
So can I jump in on this a little bit? I'm looking at the nautical chart right now. And as Eric points out, what we're really trying to accomplish is get the people to slow down on the north side of Sandy Point where boats are moored, people are swimming, all those activities. The buoy that's number 5, the green buoy at the tip of Sandy Point, really what we're most interested in is everything from the to the east of that buoy and where it goes to Sandy Point. The area that Eric was talking about where most of the fishermen go, we don't really care that much about. I mean, that's an issue where people normally don't anchor there. It's not really a congested area. So I think if we're forced to use a aid to navigation and a point of land, then using the green buoy 5 to the tip of Sandy Point and going east to buoy number 9 instead of 10, I think that covers the area that we're really most interested in. So I would propose that we
there has to be an anticipation. There has to be an anticipation of that point of land at Sandy Point. And the distance that a big cruiser needs to slow down before rounding Sandy Point is part of the problem. And it has to be done within, I'm talking hundreds of yards because of the wake and the whole momentum of traffic. And I have to say, and I remember the discussion that the Red Nun 4 was thought to be at least if a boat's at full throttle coming in, that would be the point where it would begin to slow down around Sandy Point. And the distance between 4 and the tip, or the green, the lighted buoy, is a distance of, I think, Eric, you jump in here, but I think it's like 300 yards, if that.
No,
It's a lot more than that.
it's 0.3 nautical miles. 0.3 nautical miles. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. So somewhere within there's got to be an anticipation process of boats slowing down. And as we know, even coming in the harbor, they round the point and they're supposed to slow down at the no wake point at the end of the Monsanto breakwater. But in real terms, it's noted that you have to be slow at that point, not starting your slow. And I think there has to be a split somewhere between. And think we've done a pretty good job of outlining that in previous designs and positions.
So Eric, just to reiterate, the position is that we have to or do not have to use the navigation. Can we put in our own buoy and establish that's the beginning of the slow no wake zone or not?
That all depends on who you talk to at DEP.
Okay. Well, for the sake of the plan, why don't we put the buoy where we want it to be and force DEP to challenge it? And I'm talking about the buoy that's on the west side of Sandy Point, midway between R4 and Green 5. Which I think is what Bruce Anderson's talking about. Closer to the
Can
tip.
we, Jay, in your conversations with Tim, can we define it as a midpoint between two buoys? Would he buy that?
We didn't discuss that. He might. He might.
That's really what we need, is the midpoint between R4 and we never want to make Green 5 one of the points.
No, it's got to be.
That opens up everybody coming out of Walker's Dock to go to the wrong side of Green 5 and just keep it on the hammer all the way through.
Well, you can go to the point of land that's at the tip of Edward Point. Those rocks
Yeah,
that are there.
You need
Right.
to go to the tip of the rock groin off Edwards Point.
Mhm.
So if we're going to do that, then what's going to happen is I do all the graphics for this, for Ed. So I'll have to do a new graphics that would be included in the plan. And I guess it would be a resubmission.
Right, we would send a new version back to DEP, and then we got to work on getting it approved by the town.
We have to provide a rationale as why we do not want to go to N4. Maybe not a written rationale, but something that would accompany the plan so that we have some type of interaction with the people so they understand why we want to do what we want to do.
Well, I think we define it where we want it, and then I don't think we have to explain why it is where it is in the ordinance. No.
Well, the reason I bring that up is Eric mentioned that he had one of the folks from DEP with him when they went out to Pawcatuck Point to look at the rock pile. Maybe this is another example where we want to have somebody going out with Eric in the boat saying, here's why we don't want to go to N4 and why we want to go to something that's several hundred yards from the tip of Sandy Point to encourage people to slow down at that point.
That conversation happened about 2 years ago out on the boat with Mike Payton, and he was in full agreement at the time that that would be a logical area.
So we need to do this before Mike Payton goes for. I think we should do it the way we want it to be, and fight like hell to make sure that we get what we want. That includes not letting the eastern boundary go past, probably C9 is more than enough. It doesn't need to go to R10. That's way too much.
Yeah, C9 would be good. Just trying to view how this is, because I'm looking at a chart right now. C9 drawn straight across over to some point in between green 5 and red 4.
Something off of Elihu.
Yeah, Elihu, the two northern or northwestern points are Elihu and Edwards. And then
Edwards took our new buoy that we want to put in, then back to Sandy Point, and back to, well, that's another problem, isn't it? trouble with C9 is that there's no buoy to the south of it that would help to identify the gate.
It's all right because nobody's gonna have the verbiage in front of them when you say, "Hey, the slow no wake area goes to C9."
Right.
So the buoys will be, the slow no wake gate will be on either side of the channel at C9.
Yep. To put them just inside C9.
Yeah, but we have to make a chart that shows this thing, unless we decide not to put a chart in the plan, we just go with verbiage. But right now, the chart, when I draw this up, I need to know where on the east-west line that's south of the channel does it stop and go north to intersect C9.
I would just, when you draw it up, I mean, it's not going to jump out as a real obvious thing. At C9, I would draw a line perpendicular to the channel that cuts straight across the channel, just on that little, because that's a 100-foot wide channel through there.
Yeah.
I would just draw a line perpendicular to the channel from C9 to the other side of the channel opposite C9. Go from there to, if you're looking at the same chart I am, in between N4 and green 5, it says 10 feet, 2015.
Yes. 10 feet by 100 feet,
I will-
2015. Yeah.
Would have the other point be somewhere in the area of that F or T
Okay. All right.
in there.
We're getting a fair amount of detail. Not everybody's looking at the charts. So let's leave it that Ed and I and Eric will resolve how this is, what we're going to be. I think we all understand we're trying to get midway between Sandy Point, the tip of Sandy Point, and R4, and we don't want to go past C9. So let Ed and I and Eric work this out rather than just try to hammer it out right now. Not everybody's looking at the chart. I think it's a little bit awkward for people to participate. You guys okay with that?
Like it.
Well, I'm looking at a chart and I think that makes sense.
Yes, I agree. I looked as well.
There's the chart. Can't see it, can you? No.
No,
Oh,
I'm looking at it. It looks good.
That's my point.
We'll trust you guys.
That was
Okay.
that was my feedback on the ordinance or plan revision, Jay.
Okay. Yeah, that was the only feedback.
you're buffering again, Jay. And we kind of lost him. There he is. Hi, back. We lost you, Jay, for a bit.
In there. Okay, so we'll make those changes and I'll send it back to Tim Delgado and then we'll pursue it with the town. Okay, the plan, I didn't get any feedback on the plan. And so we're trying to get the ordinance straightened out first. The plan takes a different route of approvals and all within DEP and other agencies. And I haven't heard back from them yet on the plan. These changes shouldn't affect the plan in any way. I'm aware. Okay. I think that brings us to the end. Now we had an idea that if we wanted to go to executive session, I would need to have a motion and motion that passes to go to executive session.
we move into executive session.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So Eric and Charles, since we have now started both of you to end your portion and not be participating in the executive session at this time.
Yeah,
Only
we're-
voting
we're-
commissioners.
Yeah, we're ad hoc members only. So
Correct. So if you
right.
both could close out your meeting
He
and
wants to leave? Okay.
All right, thank you for coming, guys. Well,
Good night.
thanks, gentlemen.
tonight.
y'all.
And,
Starting executive session, and I am unrecording us for the meeting for the executive session.
you stop the recording.